Hello, continuing with our top five teams in the East series. We're going to be looking at the number two team in the Eastern Conference right now, and that is the Brooklyn Nets, who are 25 and 12. They just defeated the Spurs tonight, 10 and 0 in their last 10, 12 wins in a row now. That game just ended, so that's 12 games in a row for the Brooklyn Nets, who are playing fantastic, building some consistency, especially on both ends of the floor. Getting some guys returning back and fighting through all the chaos of the offseason. Kevin Durant trade requests, Kyrie Irving's situation, Steve Nash getting fired. The Nets have put together some consistent ball. Despite whatever their record says against whoever, the strength of schedule, the fact that they are putting these wins together in a row, beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, is very encouraging for this team right now. Looking at Kevin Durant, who's averaging nearly 30 points a game, Kyrie Irving, who's nearly averaging 30 points a game, this duo who has been through so much the past, 4 or 5 months, trade requests, scandals, the comeback. Kevin Durant is an MVP candidate, keeping everything afloat. I believe he's shooting nearly 60% from the field this season, from the field as a perimeter shooter. Yes, those are statistics usually put up by great big men like Shaq, Wilt, et cetera, guys that finish around the basket, dunk. He's doing it on jump shots, three-point shooting, getting to the basket. As I said before, I think Kevin Durant is probably the best scorer I've ever seen. People are going to say Michael Jordan or whatever the case may be, but for this guy to be that pure on his jump shot, to be that pure on his three-point shooting, to be that pure in his game at 7 feet, the size of Dirk Nowitzki in terms of height, shooting in terms of Steph Curry, if you want to say, and Glenn Robinson or Michael Jordan shooting from the mid-range. This guy's 7 feet. You're not going to block his shot. I think the only guy I've ever seen block his shot has been Kawhi Leonard. And that was off a screen, which is probably one of the impressive plays I've ever seen in my lifetime. But Kevin Durant is probably the best scorer I've ever seen put the ball in the basket ever. And he's been doing that all season for the Brooklyn Nets, and rightfully so, an MVP candidate. Moving on to Kyrie Irving, who's averaging 26.1 points per game, nearly 5 rebounds, nearly 5 assists. For him to have all of that controversy around him last month, coming back, I think the Nets are like, what? I want to say 19-3 since he's come back, or whatever the case may be. He has been a vital point to this team, helping Kevin Durant with the scoring load. And Kyrie Irving, again, one of the more pure scorers in the league. I've said it before. I don't think they can even think to keep him out of All-Star game, like people were saying. He has easily probably the best guard in the Eastern Conference right now. I think Donovan Mitchell might be a little bit ahead of him. But right now, at the point guard position, no one is better than him. I think he's going to lead that and get into the All-Star game easily. Kudos to him for both those guys, for putting all the bullshit aside, putting their ball shoes on and going to work and scoring at an incredible rate, leading this Brooklyn Nets team. Of course, I think they beat the Rockets a couple times, Spurs, et cetera, lower jails in the league. But for them to just even put together some consistency is just a good sign, especially when Brooklyn has had no consistency. The issues with Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, the issues with Ben Simmons and his injury when he's come back slow and hasn't been that guy that they thought of. Another guy that has emerged for them is Nic Claxton in Ben Simmons' departure and trying to get back in his feet wet. Nic Claxton has become a vital part, getting nearly a double-double every night, nearly 12 points, 8.5 rebounds, but most importantly, providing rim protection, 2.4 blocks per game. Of course, people are going to question his youthfulness and his experience level, of course, when they get to the playoffs. But when you look at what he's doing right there, being able to just stay available, being able to be a finisher around the basket, being able to grab rebounds and block shots, that's something that they desperately needed next to Kevin Durant if he was going to be on that front line, next to Ben Simmons if they were going to be on that front line chasing guys or whatever until Ben Simmons gets back. Nic Claxton has filled that role really well for the Nets so far over these last couple of games and has really been putting it together for them. So kudos to him. As well as you look at the bench here, you got Yuta Watanabe, Joe Harris, Steph Curry, all roughly getting 8 points a game. Yuta Watanabe, one of the best three-point shooters percentage-wise in the league. Being efficient on his shots is going to help Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving open up the floor for them, get to the basket. You got Joe Harris and Steph Curry, guys who are career-wise good shooters, now stepping up, getting their percentages up, getting their points, getting a flow back, coming back from injury, and things like that nature. That is going to add to the Brooklyn Nets shooting, and especially their offense, which has been leading, but their defense has been picking it up as well. but we look at what they are doing offensively and what they could be offensively. And not to mention that TJ Warren is coming back. TJ Warren has come back and had a couple of good games, looking good off the bench for them as well. So that's another added weapon to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And when you look at that, you have to speak to how great that is for their offense. Another guy that can get the bucket and get to the basket, something that they struggled with last year's playoffs and previous seasons, where they needed another guy to get a basket other than Kevin Durant out of Kyrie Irving, another guy that can get a basket on his own, finish, and score. That is something that they desperately needed and added right there with them. And now we look at what they're doing first in field goal percentage and second in three-point percentage. That is how efficient this offense is, especially with Kyrie Irving, especially with Kevin Durant leading the charge, but also having that shooting around them. It's very difficult to stop these guys, especially on the offensive end. And to see this team put together a streak like this is very positive. To see Jacques Vaughn, who's been the interim coach for a long time in other stops, had his head coaching jobs in, I believe, Orlando at the point in time, and to really get this opportunity to lead these guys and really put them in positions to actually have some success. Kudos to him, and especially him coming in off the firing of Steve Nash, who Kevin Durant requested to be fired. The Nets saying no, and then eventually just going, hey, we got to give in and get Steve Nash out of here and break this up as fast as possible. Jacques Vaughn comes in and has been able to lead this team to some sort of consistency. And that's very positive for the Brooklyn Nets, who have been in turmoil so more. And it's like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving said, all right, let's actually do something that we're actually good at and actually focus on the game of basketball and actually put together some good streaks and actually play good basketball. And they've been able to do that. And I think that's something that they always wanted to do, just all this other outside shit just bothering them. But to eventually get to that point where they're playing basketball this well, kudos to the Nets. Kudos to the Nets through everything that's been going on. The Eastern Conference is too tough. Of course, there's been injuries and stuff like that. Yes, their schedule isn't the strongest. But for them to even put together some type of consistency this way, that's awesome. Now, you're thinking about what they could do in terms of what their team can improve on. I think adding a big man, maybe Dwight Howard after his Taiwanese stint, whatever the case may be over there, his overseas stint, whatever the case may be, maybe they potentially even get in the trade market and see what they do. But I think that's going to be the buyout market team, the guys that after their Chinese contract are done coming back over. I think that's something that they're going to be looking at because they need another big man there just to shore up their front line and get some minutes there, some relief for a Nic Claxton, a Kevin Durant in those terms of when things are getting a little tough and they're playing high minutes. Kevin Durant has been playing high minutes all season. If they can find some type of, they already got TJ Warren coming back in the fold, so maybe he can back him up and have some success there. But I think adding a big man to this team in a reserve role could really help this team going down the line. But the Nets are playing red hot right now. They just defeated the Spurs, I think 139-101. Spurs are not trying to win games right now, but just to see the Nets put it on like that and have blowout wins like that, not play with their food and get things done, very impressive for the Nets. Very impressive for the Brooklyn Nets so far as they head into the second quarter before